Hi everyone, thank you for joining us for today's webinar. My name is Saif. Hi everyone, slight technical difficulty, but anyways, thank you for all for joining us today for our corporate VAT for SMEs in the UAE webinar. My name is Saif, I'm an SME account executive here at Odoo, and I'm part of Team UAE. And today we're going to be talking about something that's become a huge topic for businesses over the last 2 years, how to manage corporate VAT in the UAE, corporate tax in the UAE, and value-added tax. Now, I'm not an accountant, but my goal here today is to teach you about tax law, or is to not teach you about tax law, but to rather give you a practical, more high-level understanding of what these requirements mean for SMEs and how Odoo helps simplify these processes. Now, whether you're a finance manager, a company owner, or someone just trying to get things organized before year end, this session is designed to give you that clarity. Now, we're going to cover what you need to know, where businesses typically struggle, and how we handle all of this in Odoo. Now, we're going to focus on two major areas today. First, which would be the corporate tax. We're going to go over what that is, who that applies to, and what you need to track throughout the year. The second is your VAT returns. We're going to review the standard filing process, the most common challenges SMEs run into, and how Odoo solves these problems. For both, I'll follow the explanation with a quick live demo showing how it works directly onto the system, and then I'll wrap up with a bit of a Q&A session at the end of this webinar, and you can feel free to ask me any questions you might want to. Now, corporate tax, what is it? It was introduced in the UAE in June 2023, and it's a direct tax on just net profit, meaning the profit that your company earns after all the expenses are removed. Now, that's an important distinction. We're not just talking about taxing all of your revenue, but just the actual income that you get to keep after allowable costs. Now, the UAE did this to stay aligned with international standards, but they also did keep it SME friendly. And that's very important, especially for smaller businesses, because the threshold and rate are structured to be able to support growth and not have you worry about any financial pressure early on when you're starting your business. And the way it works is very simple. It's almost like a two-tier structure. You pay 0% on the first 375,000 dirhams on taxable profit. And this is almost like your buffer. That's how you can think about it. Anything above that gets taxed at 9%. It's a very predictable model. It's very simple to follow, which helps businesses plan ahead. So let's say, for example, your company makes 500,000 dirhams in profit or in taxable profit. You're only taxed on 125,000 dirhams of that at a rate of only 9%. Now, this allows smaller businesses to grow without feeling the full tax weight right away. Now, we're going to look at how this plays inside Odoo during the demo. But first, let's take a look at who this actually applies to. Now, this tax doesn't just apply to bigger corporations. If your business has a UAE commercial license, you're automatically included. And that applies to individuals and freelancers as well, as long as you're earning more than 1 million dirhams from business activities. Now, free zone entities must also register, even if they qualify for a 0% rate. And the key condition is that they're not doing any business in the mainland. And then, of course, you have your foreign businesses that do have a consistent presence in the UAE. That could be anything like a branch or an office. Those also have to comply. And it also covers regulated sectors like banking and real estate. Those can be examples like agencies, developers, and property managers. But in short, what you need to take away from this is if you're actively doing business in the UAE, you're most likely in the scope. Now, this is where things do get to a bit messy, especially with SMEs that don't really have a structured accounting setup or are a smaller team that don't even have a dedicated accountant to take care of all this for them. And to stay compliant, what you need to be tracking is all your income, your allowable expenses, your adjustments for non-deductible items, and of course, you have to have a clean and accurate P&L report. What happens in many businesses, especially if things are managed in Excel, is that you miss transactions, misclassify your expenses, or forget adjustments that reduce your tax burden overall. Now, manual tracking is quite slow, and of course, it is prone to error, as many of you have probably faced on your own. And it is quite risky as well, especially if you're rushing to finalize everything before a submission deadline. And in an audit, not being able to show clear documentation can be a huge problem. And that's where Odoo comes in. It simplifies this, also automates most of it, and it gives you real-time visibility. And I'll just show you now in just a second. All right, so now for a very quick demo on what corporate tax looks like here in the UAE on Odoo. If I just switch over to my demo tab. Now, this database is localized here in the UAE. The first thing we want to make sure of is we're going to go into the apps. I'm going to quickly minimize this. And we're going to search for the United Arab Emirates. Now, there are a few localization packages that we're taking a look at right now. The ones that we need to have enabled for both corporate tax and for our accounting reports are the ones over here. Of course, you need to have your accounting localization module enabled as well, which we've already done so in advance. So if you want to be able to do corporate tax automatically and VAT returns automatically as well, make sure to have these modules downloaded. So simply, I'm going to navigate back to our main page, and I'm going to go ahead and jump into accounting. Now, I'm not going to spend too much time, and I'm going to keep this a bit higher level to show you what business owners generally care about most when they're doing the corporate tax configurations on Odoo. Now, after setting up your chart of accounts and doing all the relevant accounting configurations, simply, when you want to take a look at how much you're liable to pay for your corporate tax, you jump over to the reporting button, to this neat tab over here that says corporate tax report on the United Arab Emirates. And then here we can see our corporate tax report. Now we can see our net income is around 523,000 dirhams. Gross profit also around the same. And we can see after we remove any expenses, our taxable amount that's above the 375,000 dirhams is 148,000 dirhams. Now, of course, being taxed at a rate of 9%, this would give us our corporate tax amount of 13,339 dirhams, which is all calculated automatically. Now, if you want to upload or you want to export these files, you have a few different options. You can either download as a PDF or as an Excel. We all know that for a lot of accountants, Excel is still their best friend, so we give you that option to switch between the two. So downloading a PDF report, let's take a quick look at what that looks like. Taking a look at our corporate tax report over here, we can see it's essentially the same thing that we saw over on Odoo, but downloaded as a PDF. Now, this would be quite important for auditing purposes as well, making sure to have all your documents in place. And if we so choose, we can take a look at what year we're taking a look at, which backdates all our data here on Odoo, with any transactions that are logged, any expenses, any operating expenses, net income, gross profit, etc. All that would be tracked, and you're able to go back in time whenever you please. All right. Now, this was quite straightforward, and it only took about 2-3 minutes to take a look at this, is because Odoo does all of this automatically for you. It tags the right accounts, it makes sure to do the right calculations, make sure to calculate your income and your exempt income as well, your expenses, cost of revenue, to give us our gross profit, and then finally our taxable amount with the tax percentage with the corporate tax amount. Right, so let's go back now that that's been taken care of. And let's jump into the second part, which is our VAT. Now, VAT is one that most businesses in the UAE are already dealing with compared to the corporate tax, and the VAT rate is exactly 5%. Now, returns are filed either monthly or quarterly, depending on the type of registration. You collect output VAT on sales and input VAT, and you pay input VAT on purchases. Now, what you have to do is you have to report the difference. You either pay the FTA through MR tax, or you get a refund, if your input exceeds your output. All this is quite straightforward, things that most people here already know. So far, everything sounds manageable, but in practices, what we see personally and what we see and my colleagues see here at Odoo is a lot of businesses keep getting messed up, especially when they try to reconcile everything manually. Now, the most common issues that they face are invoices and bills that miss the right VAT tag, delayed reconciliation with bank records, and reports that don't reflect reality because things are either manually entered or duplicated and they have a hard time pinpointing exactly where those duplicates are. And because VAT returns are very frequent, every month or every quarter, you don't really have the luxury of fixing mistakes later, pushing it off. Now, late or incorrect filings result in penalties, and they add up quite quickly. It also becomes very hard to answer questions from auditors or the FTA when your records are inconsistent. Now, the way Odoo helps is it takes a lot of this off your plate. Simply how we just saw with corporate tax and how it managed to do everything automatically. With VAT, every invoice and bill can be pre-configured with the correct VAT tag. So as you enter transactions, the system knows exactly how to treat them as soon as they hit the system. Now you get a live VAT report as well that updates in real time. So at any point, you can preview what your next return will look like, drill into each and every line item on a more granular level, and export them in an FTA compliant format, which I'll also show you as well. Now you can also reconcile directly with your bank feeds. You can connect your bank account with Odoo, so your numbers are always clean and up to date. So what I'm going to do very, very quickly is show you what that looks like in this following demo. Now this is going to follow the same theme. Again, let's start off with our dashboard if anyone's joining us right now and would like to see specifically for our VAT returns. Simply, we're going to navigate back to our main page. We're going to jump into the accounting module, jump into the reporting tab, and right into the tax report section over here. Now, as you can see, Odoo creates this report that's completely compliant with the FTA. Again, Odoo is fully compliant with the Federal Tax Authority. In fact, if you want to take a look at the Federal Tax Authority website, jump into their certified accounting software, you'll see that Odoo is actually the first name on the list. That's a bit of a fun exercise that you might want to do right after this webinar. So again, all the calculations are done automatically. I'm not going to pretend like I'm an accountant. I know exactly how each of these sections are built. But what most business owners like to see is the ability to export it as a PDF, which we'll quickly take a look at right here. Simple, same as what we did with corporate tax. Again, this is a completely compliant PDF. But what we're going to do right now is we're going to jump into our returns right away. Jumping into our returns, we can see it's split by the months, and we can see that we have different stages we need to do. So for June, for the May tax with the deadline associated, we have 3 failed operations. Now the first thing we need to do is review, then submit, then pay. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to review the issues. We can see that the taxes and countries are matching, meaning that any tax or invoices match the customer's country. And we've reviewed and posted the draft invoices within that same period. Now the issues that we're facing that the system tags automatically is that we are missing a few bits of company data. In this case, we haven't added our VAT number or our country. We haven't added a document attached as proof in case of an audit for each of the bills, and we didn't add the banks to match the banks for the 6 transactions that we have. Assuming we go and take care of this, or your accountant would go and take care of these, we're just going to go ahead and simply press ignore. Assuming we've completed everything correctly and we've reviewed these items, next up is to submit. So let's now go ahead and submit. And the amount we have due to pay is 26,000 dirhams. So what we can do is we can either pay later or mark as paid. And then we've completed the tax filing for May, and now we're on to June with the relevant deadline. So now our accountants know to act accordingly. So what I didn't show specifically for the June tax filing is our tax report. So I'm going to jump into that right now for July of 2025. Again, this is the tax report that we have for our tax returns. We can also print this specific report out as a PDF. Jump into it right over here. Right now we don't have any data to support or to fill this tax report, but as you can imagine, the more transactions you have, the more you start using the system, the more this will be populated, and the easier your life becomes when you go to submit these tax returns. Right? Jumping back in to the session. Now at this point, we've covered our corporate tax, our VAT returns, what you need to know, who's liable for it, and how you can leverage Odoo to use it. At this point, it would be great to take any questions. If anyone has any specific questions on tax setup, on Odoo, on how you can get in contact with someone that might be able to assist you, feel free to ask. We'll give a couple of minutes just in case there's any questions. Someone says, hi, Safe. Hi, Mr. Tech. Mr. Tech, if you have any questions, please feel free to let us know. We'll have a couple more minutes for anyone to ask any questions that they might have. And from there, we'll move forward by ending the webinar. And if anyone has any questions, of course, they can feel free to get in contact with our advisors. Rafi asks, how do you configure the sales export? If you can be a bit more specific about what you mean by that, because when it comes to, if you're asking about, and I'm going to make an assumption while you type out your clarification, if you mean any additional or specific reports, you're looking at either a product level, a customer level, a company level, or a product segment level, all those data points that are configured in the system are available to be exported as a report. And you can modify the reports as you so please. Now, since this demo that we created is localized specifically, or is set up specifically for accounting, we haven't set up any sales reports or the sales application. But what we're able to do, if you haven't had the time to go through a demo, I highly recommend going to odoo.com, starting a new free trial, or getting in contact with one of our business advisors, and they can show you exactly how sales would be set up and how you can generate reports based on what you're looking for. All right, thank you, Mr. Tech. Rafi, how do you configure sales export and purchase imports? Simply on Odoo, you're able to import any sales. If by sales you mean any quotations, any sales orders, or if you mean invoices and bills on an accounting level, that's what you're able to do on the accounting module on Odoo. You're able to import any invoices, and you're able to input any bills as well, and you're able to export them. We have to still report things sold outside the country. If you could just clarify a bit more about what you mean, these are quite a bit vague. When it comes to questions that are more specific to your specific business operations, I always recommend getting in contact with a business advisor. They'd be able to address your situation and even show you the system and have you guys interact back and forth on a live demo that's built specifically for your operations. Right, Adra asked a great question. How do you configure corporate tax, specifically the deductible accounts? Now, the way that would be done is once you go in settings under accounting, of course, assuming that the UAE localization is installed, you would have two sections for your deductibles, as well as any other accounts or journals you might want to add for your tax for both sides. And then from there, the calculation would be done automatically. Now, in this case, that hadn't actually been set up. However, you're still able to get the correct tax report. If you have any accountants, I always recommend getting in contact with them, as I myself am not a chartered accountant. I do have Odoo experience, but not accounting experience. And this is more of an accounting experience question. Mazen asked a great question. Will I share the session? Yeah, the session's on YouTube. As soon as the live stream's done, you're going to be able to rewatch the session whenever you need. All right, a couple more questions coming in. How do you localize the UAE for corporate tax? Can I show that again? Yep, not a problem. Let's just go back to share the screen. Very simply, you can see my screen right now. All you need to do is make sure you have your system, you have your accounting module downloaded. You go over to apps, quick backspace, search for United Arab Emirates. You download the accounting localization pack, corporate tax report, localization, and accounting reports. Of course, these are other localization packs for payroll and payroll with accounting, but we're not focusing on that right now. You can just go ahead and do that through there. I hope that was clear. Right. I think I understand your question a bit more, Rafi. Now, what Odoo it does, and a neat feature that it has as well, is it also localizes based on the different countries that you might be selling or exporting, importing to. We work with a lot of import and export, or companies that do a lot of import and export, and all these transactions, all these interactions pertaining to whether or not it's liable to be under corporate tax or not, all that's done automatically on the system. An example I showed is how things were set up automatically without me having to really input too much. And that's to give you the sort of what it looks like as a business owner, as someone without too much of a background in accounting, to set this up on the system. However, all these would be done automatically if you have the accounting localization pack installed. Mazen recommends we have a session about tax in Saudi. I'll definitely relay that over to our marketing team. This could be something that could be quite helpful. Will you offer account manager? Yeah, Shuruk asks, will you offer an account manager that will help along the way? Of course. As long as you have a subscription on Odoo, you have a dedicated account manager that you can have access to, whether that be someone you might ask questions to, someone that you need guidance for and to know which setup is best for you on Odoo, or someone that might be able to support you every once in a while with relevant Odoo information. As long as you have a subscription on Odoo, you have an account manager. Right. Shuruk also asks, what's the cost? Head over to odoo.com/pricing. All our prices are transparent. All right. Now, there are a lot of questions that are being asked that are very accounting heavy. Things that aren't necessarily just Odoo accounting focused, but just accounting in general. I always recommend going to a chartered accountant. Or if you go to odoo.com, scroll down to the bottom, you'll be able to see accounting firms that also use Odoo, that do auditing services, taxation services, and these services that pertain to the questions that you're asking. So if that's something that you guys are interested in, feel free. If not, and you want something more accounting focused, you can also jump in with one of the Odoo account managers or business advisors if you don't have a subscription active on Odoo. Right. With that being said, we've reached around the 25-minute mark. Thank you everyone for joining us today. Really appreciate your time. It's always a pleasure to run these webinars. Let us know in the comments, or let us know if you reach out to any of your account managers or business advisors if there's any specific webinars you're looking at, ones that interest you, ones that you might want to tune into that might help make your Odoo process or progress a bit more simple and a bit smoother. But aside from that, thank you all for your time, and I hope to see you soon.